Synctuition.
Listening to Synctuition for just 25 minutes gives you the same benefits as a 4-hour meditation. Now, how amazing is that?
Synctuition helps me to balance my body and mind on a daily basis. I was able to turn all my negative thoughts around so easily.
Synctuition is definitely the best audio relaxation program I've ever tried.
Welcome to Synctuition.
Oh my goodness. Seriously, I have to just do it. It's like I can tell myself I don't have to think about things that don't matter.
I was designed to do those things. How the hell does this guy know this about me?
It's impossible to not see.
When Dan read for my sister, she was like, he's psychic. She's like, how did you know that?
Yes.
She's like, it's human design, guys. Like, it's just a testimony of how legit it is.
Seriously, Danny was like FBI or CIA. He's like, how the hell does this guy know this about me?
Having my chart read, they were just seeing after seeing after seeing after that. I was just like, wow, that's me.
This man is reading me, and I've never met him before.
I was in the midst of one of the biggest emotional waves I've ever been in my life, and he saved my life.
It seems like everybody has the same reaction. It's that aha moment, and they want to find out more.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Human Design Advantage podcast. Today is May 22nd. My name is Jen, and decoding the matrix for us still is DannyGuru. Hey, Dan.
Still in forever, Jen. We're all on board. We're all in, baby.
We are all on board, and man, we are doing some amazing things behind the scenes here, guys. As always, please make sure you like, subscribe, and follow the channel. If you have not already, let me go ahead and pop up the banner. Sign up for our newsletter because we've got some things that are going out. If you ever miss a show, you'll get alerted on that. And we are working on some clothing behind the scenes so that we can bring you some HDA stuff. And yeah, amazing things are going on. How are you today, Dan?
I'm great, Jen. You always give such a good, clean introduction. This is good stuff.
Thank you very much.
Yep, we have some guests with us, too, so this is nice.
Yes, we have a guest for us. But before we dive right into that, recap from last week. If you haven't caught it, we did talk about the gates of fear. I think it was very informative.
And we were coming off of the individual process too, which we're going to stay with quite a bit because that's who we're liberating. You know, the conspiracy to awaken is first for the individual that makes up the group. But we did deal with the gates of fear for everything else too. The other streams of awareness. Yep.
And it was a very informative and wonderful show last week. And so this week we're going to be diving in the uniqueness is the true human way.
It's the only human way. Yes.
Yes.
Yep. And we'll be going over just taking up from last week where we left off with, you know, the gates of fear and how we're not supposed to really be, you know, consumed with the fear. We're supposed to notice the fear. And then now we're going into everything so people can have a general idea of what human design is all about. The centers, the channels, the body graph itself, the life force that flows through our body. Get to know it, guys. It's worth it.
I love how you say that, the life force that flows through our body. That's a DannyGuru quote right there, guys.
I never know when they come out. Don't ask me to repeat it.
No, well we're live, so we can definitely go back out there and watch it over.
Rock on. So tell me when we're ready, Jen.
We can go ahead and dive into today's show.
So we'll go back to full screen afterwards, but first things first, play that quick video. Is that video queued up?
I can get it queued up here in just
Cognition
a minute.
And eventually consciousness.
Yeah, that was quite a new idea for me. If I read it right, was that modulation of thermodynamics may actually be an important part of the regulation of mental phenomena.
In one respect, you mentioned at the beginning of our conversation, Tony Damasio, who you've introduced. One way that we overlap completely is to recognize that it's not I feel because I think, but I think because I feel. That is, feeling is primary. Everything about cognition is feeling. Yes, some feelings can be about, but feeling is the very, very basis of this. That's what we mean by sentience, by sensing something, by feeling something. And the key to this, for me, is to recognize that feeling is about work. When I feel something, it's because of a contrograde relationship. That's a work relationship. Feeling is about something that was spontaneous being disturbed. When something wakes me up, it's because something that just sort of happens spontaneously now disturbs that spontaneous process. Work is being done on my nervous system, and it's responding to it. And that means that we need to begin thinking about the nervous system not just as computing, not just as running signals around in some form, but actually understanding how signal processing in the brain is about its own teleodynamics.
So, Jen, go back full screen. So that was 2 eggheads, beautiful eggheads at MIT. Because I run through a broad spectrum of stuff. I'm looking for folks that are waking up to this nature that our old 7-centered past didn't recognize. And it's this new emotional way of ours, that feelings and chemistries inside our body. We've been talking about this the whole time. We are the chemistry. The vehicle is in charge. The body gives us the signal. That gives us our truth. And that's, in scientific terms, that's what those guys were talking about. Mm-hmm. They were talking about how, and he said it. That's why I grabbed this clip. He's like, thoughts aren't feeling. Feelings make the thoughts. And he's right.
Yeah, well, that is exactly how it works, especially when you get into doing any type of psychology work, or, that's what I dove into with mindfulness, and then life coaching and hypnotherapy. That's what feelings are. It starts from that thought. This is the law of memory and data. When you get into Ho'oponopono, that's the law of memory and data. It's the thought, and then it triggers an emotion.
Yes, and so we've been dealing with this the whole time. The emotional wave that rules this planet. So much is part of the up and down cycle of an emotional wave. So half of us on here have an emotional wave. And so that's what this man was referring to from a clinical, sort of very scientific basis. These guys are from MIT, and they're that guy. So that guy's been studying his whole life to do something that, that we can now read in a body graph. Mm-hmm. And it's, that's why I emailed him.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Please keep us posted on that.
Well, I begged of him, I'm forgetting his name, for a brief audience with him. He said he's available Tuesdays and Thursdays. He's a professor at one of the universities. And so hopefully he gets back to me so I can give him. And I also sent message to Jim Rutt, who was the show. That was the guy whose show that was. Just audio. I'd seen him on Brett Weinstein's show. Brett Weinstein is really close. All the talking heads that have been saving us through this plandemic, and that's right, a plandemic, have been literally, they've been waking up. They've been seeing it. Hey, there's something here. Before, they weren't talking amongst themselves, saying, hey, there's something here. We feel stuff. Hey, we're interconnected. Hey, sometimes people need a little bit of something called God. Hey, there's more to us than we're recognizing. Hey, they've been noticing, hey, you know what? If we don't get together, we're not so healthy. If we don't commune, we're not doing so well. These are things that any one scientist could have been like, well, I'm not sure. Let me look into it. Let's run a study. But collectively, they're all recognizing it. And and this show just came out this week. And we missed the contest, by the way. Had I seen it a few days earlier, we could have entered a contest. But so they've been showing this. Just that guy came out with this thing this week after you and I have been talking about this stuff for the past 12 weeks, 13 weeks. So, like I keep saying, each week we're putting this out into the matrix. We are putting this into the world.
Well, we're also contributing to it. What I liked about this video that was different from the other ones was that he did give the scientific things, so that can correlate to the human design.
Yep.
And it's more detailed. But people waking up globally is it's really it's happening.
Recognition that the nervous system isn't just the thoughts; it seems to go everywhere. And so when I get a hold of him, I'll show him the 9 centers and show him where that nervous system is going, and then he can put his beautiful mind. That man is a defined head. I'll bet you anything, and he can put that beautiful mind of his. That's where I watched one of his lectures in a class too. He's so razor focused on his discipline. He can put that beautiful mind back to work, discovering what are these centers. Let's name them more. Love names. Naming it keeps it in the Maya. So
I love that you did that. That's a whole separate show. Definitely keep us posted on that.
Yeah.
That's a major impact, Dan.
I sure hope so. I won't know until it shows up. I'm a 2/4, so I don't get to know things. I love it that way. Do you want to bring?
I don't.
Do you want to bring Esther on?
Absolutely, we have Esther and Savannah on.
Oh, cool.
Hi, Esther, E-Star. And we've got Savannah on. Savannah's got her mic muted. She may have some kid stuff going on.
Yeah, Savannah always has kids going on, so we make sure that everybody. This is a kid-friendly program. We don't care. It's all great. Yep. So, hey, Esther, how's things? We're talking about our own individual designs today, and we're gonna blow it up into this uniqueness. So we've been trying to recognize and let everyone recognize that in our human design body graph is where we determine and see our uniqueness. It's every body graph is different. And so in that uniqueness, we're going to smash back against the collective and make them stop trying to take that away from us. The tribe always allows uniqueness, to a degree. The collective could care less, and they will gladly smash half the planet to make the other half conform to non-uniqueness, like what's happening over in what's the name of that town, that big giant province in China where they locked everyone down? Shanghai.
I don't know.
I think it's Shanghai. 26 million people approximately, all locked in their, apartments and their,
Oh my God.
Yeah, the folks are dying over there, literally from starvation. It's amazing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's awful. It's absolutely awful. Well, lucky you, Esther. Sorry to break it to you. Yeah.
Don't know what you don't know till you know.
Don't know what you don't know till you know.
Sometimes that's a good thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we've all noticed inside our body graphs that inside of this uniqueness, we all have an individual way. And when we start looking at the body graphs, we'll see there's a super simple thing when you look at a human design body graph. It's this openness, the stuff that's white versus the stuff that's colored in. Yeah, there's mine. So that's me. So all of this openness, I was tortured by it as a young kid because my mom and dad didn't know to explain certain things to me. And so I was tortured by the open ego, that little triangle that's got 2 red gates pointing at it. It's totally open, meaning there's not yet right there. The ego is the will of the planet. And just as an overarching keynote, the ego likes to prove things. And so when you have an open ego, you tend to wonder and question your own worth. You're not sure. Other people look good and they do something good, and you wonder why you're not that good. It's this big fat head trip that nobody knew to tell me about. So I kept it quiet, and I would always try and get better than or hide away from. And I didn't know. I was no good in a fight until it was in the moment and I had to fight back. As a boy, that was a thing. Boys fought, sometimes. And I would be so shit scared. I didn't know what to make of it. But if there was a moment that would come by, I could defend myself. And I didn't know that. So I spent so much time, being afraid of conflict. That's the next open center, that open solar plex. It's the one right below it with the red gate 6 coming off of it. Here I am, a vessel of love, and I just wanted to hang out, party, and have cake parties and be a little networker that was, let everyone in. And if you didn't have enough money, you could drink anyways. That was us, cake parties in the woods. And as soon as there was a conflict, I started getting jittery. I didn't know. You two guys have an emotional definition. It's not the same jitters for you guys. You know, you understand that, hey, I go up and down through an emotional wave, but other people would put that wave in me and I didn't know. You know, successfully got me out of 2 marriages that I didn't know. I would amplify that emotional wave. I would amplify that ego. And suddenly I would extra feel bad that I wasn't competing and maybe wasn't as good as I could be. And I didn't like the conflict, especially with myself. So I didn't even want to admit it to myself. You know, and then an open root center. Growing up, go ahead.
That's the thing. You just said something that was very important. That where change happens is that when you admit it to yourself. It's the hardest thing for any of us to do, is to take personal responsibility. So I'm really glad that you said that, because you're talking about actually making a profound change in your life, and you did one thing. You admitted it to yourself.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Plus you're witnessing yourself too, you know what I mean? And being willing to actually step into, I guess you can call that, when you're talking about personal responsibility, I think of that as being like a sovereign being of light, that kind of thing, right? Where you're truly seeing yourself from that place of consciousness, mindfulness, all these, you know, words that everybody's trying to use right now as far as that goes. But all it really is for me, if I were to just put it into a word, would be true presence. You know what I mean? And just allowing yourself to truly be present with yourself and witness yourself and allow that to just be, rather than trying to control it or move it in any one direction. And then I feel like with human design, when you have that information available to you, and how I've experienced it in my own life, is it truly gives me the opportunity to do that, to actually be present with myself with a different, not even different, but a deeper understanding. With having that blueprint available can just like change your shit, man. Like really at a DNA level. It's like you feel it download. I remember when I had my first reading with Dan, like I could feel it downloading into my body. And I was like, this is legit. Like, wow. And then I allowed it to seep into my bones. And later, I would say like, 6 months later, or even a year later, in different situations, I was able to witness how it was coming through, and where, as Dan likes to call it, you're helpless to yourself in certain ways, and just allowing that to be, Right. And so thank you for sharing that with what you did, especially with that emotional wave explanation that you brought up. That was really interesting, because I was wondering how it would, like, if you have an open emotional center, how that would affect you, like in any given example. And you brought it up, so thank you. Because when you have an emotional person, how it would affect you, you know what I mean?
It makes me fear conflict, and I amplify that emotional wave.
Yeah, you talk about amplifying it. That was interesting.
So the conflict starts to get in one person, and suddenly the conflict is twice as big in me, and I don't realize what's going on. And
it's
now,
like holding a potato. What the fuck do I do with this?
yes. And suddenly now, well, in that amplification, suddenly I want to avoid the conflict. And the second I start avoiding a conflict, I'm now lying to myself. I'm smushing my truth away. And my 5-year-old self, my little 5-year-old Danny, didn't know to avoid anything. I just said either no, I don't like it, or yes, I love it. I'm a good little generator. I didn't know. Yeah. And so,
imagine having that information available to you when you're in that moment, because then you could let that pass through you. You know what I mean?
Feel it. It still feels uncomfortable, Esther. It still feels uncomfortable when an emotional wave goes into me, but now I see it, and seeing it kills it. And so the more I see it, I'm very lucky. I have a secretary at work. She's right hand and part of my left hand. You might remember that, Esther, when we worked together.
I do.
Yeah, and she's you. Actually, and so she's got a strong emotional wave, and it flows, and when it goes in, so I'm lucky. I get constant practice. Yep.
But yeah, just having that information available, I mean, that's just being able to come from a place of, I almost feel like it brings like a certain sense. Comfort's not really the word I'm looking for, because like you said, it's not a comfortable feeling, but when you know what's happening, or at least have an understanding of what's happening, it kind of makes it easier to flow with it, rather than resisting it or repressing it or trying to squish it like you were talking about earlier. You can just kill it or let it be.
You know what's been happening recently? I've seen it going to me, and I recognize I'm safe, and I start to enjoy it. I'm like, oh, that thing's pouring through me.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and I lean into it a little bit. I lean in on it, and I'll even say it to Jackie Farrow. I'll be like, Jackie, I can feel you. This thing is kicking up, and she'll let me know right away. And so I just lean into it. And in the past, I would go hermit myself. Run away. Run away. What was that? The Monty Python.
Yes.
Did you
Savannah, did you?
Oh, yeah. I was just going to say human design can help. Like there's things that about ourselves that we don't want to admit, like that shadow side that we want to run from and we don't want to be consciously aware of, that we might have some like unhealthy things in our personality and our design. And so I think that's what's so powerful about human design is it helps you to become aware of and bring attention to some things that maybe like aren't healthy or aren't like helping you or that are like self-sabotaging you. Cause like I have an open emotion center also. And that's totally how it is. Like when I get around someone who's really emotional, like I feel overwhelmed. Like I feel it's like, I used to run from it. I used to, and I hated it, hated confrontation. And so I would run. And like, that's the not self theme of the open emotional center is avoiding truth about yourself or like conflict with other people. And so, so I guess I'm just saying like human design has made me aware of that. Like I used to not think I was that type of person, but like the more after you tell me that, and then I'm like, oh my gosh, I do that, you know? Right. So I'm like, I just feel like human design is really powerful. Your open centers show you where your shadow is. Like I know you were mentioning that, Dan, in one of the reels that you posted, how our open centers show us our shadow. And it helps us kind of like evolve our consciousness and our awareness so that we're just like better, more loving people. Yeah.
Well, Jake has that emotional wave. So you've had experience now with that, with your husband.
Yes.
You've seen that come and go at times.
Yes. It's been really interesting. Like since learning human design, I can like look back and I'm like, oh my gosh, like that was the time Jake was having an emotional wave. And in the past, I would just get annoyed with it, but now it's almost kind of fun. It's like, okay, let's try this out. Like, let's see what helps you through your emotional wave. It's almost like a game in a way. Like, and there's no judgment attached to his emotional wave. Like in the past, how it used to be that way. So it's helped us a lot.
Look at what's happening. We're recognizing it's not the other guy's fault. We're recognizing our own helplessness, and it's perfect. And then suddenly the conditioning goes away. And then suddenly inside your helplessness, you recognize your power because your power is sitting inside the life force that's defined in your body graph. That's where your power is, and your openness is where you're literally, it's like eyes on the world. It's where you see everything. Your openness is where you see, and your definition is what you are doing the seeing. It's really straightforward stuff in a way.
Didn't they say that it's your open, where you're filled in is where you're the student, and where you're open is where you're here to go to school at and gain all your wisdom from, right? Like the open centers are where we tend to get off track, a little bit lost, but it's also where we can gain our greatest wisdom. So and like, which to me was kind of hard because I have so much open centers in my chart. I have, I think 6, 7 open centers.
6 open centers.
Yeah. So I have a lot I have to go to school in, which can be kind of hard sometimes, but then it's comforting to know like, well, that's where you're going to gain your most wisdom that you can share with the other. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God. The 3 that you have defined are the 3 that I have open. That's awesome.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
So I have a defined ego. I don't like confrontation. I avoid it like the plague.
Yeah, but Jen, you're not lying to yourself when you avoid it. You're not thinking.
Oh, okay.
You're not thinking there's something wrong with you. You're not afraid. You haven't studied it enough. You haven't figured out what it's not practical for you to get into it. if you have a 5th line in your profile, it's got to be practical or you're not going to get into it. But it's not that there's just total fear of it, like what's happening.
Okay.
You know, it's more you're making a conscious decision. I don't like this. I don't, you know, and I don't like you.
Yeah, it is a conscious decision. I don't like it.
Yeah, manifestor closes its aura and there's no getting through, and that's that. You know, shields up. You know, me and Esther don't have such an easy shields up. Our aura is open and enveloping. Savannah doesn't have an easy shields up. She's stuck penetrating people with her aura. Like, who are you? What do you mean you don't like me? Stuff of that nature.
Okay. Okay,
Oh.
that makes sense.
Also,
Go
I
ahead.
wanted to say with that emotional solar plexus open, we don't like confrontation with other people, but then it's also like our own emotions. My own emotions can feel overwhelming to me also. So for me, I want to numb out. Like if I'm feeling all these big emotions, I want to go scroll social media instead of like feeling the emotion and like writing out my thoughts or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, so I noticed that too with myself. I would avoid truth and my emotions within myself, which can backfire on you, right? Like it's not healthy to push everything down. You know, that's not healthy for you, like mentally or emotionally. So yeah.
But at the same time, can I just say how fucking beautiful your awareness is? Like, listen to yourself speak. Like the level of self-awareness that this has brought for you and that you're allowing into your own field of consciousness is beautiful. So thank you for contributing that to
Actually, Savannah, yeah.
The healing of one is the healing of all. And so it's just like even recognizing how you feel about your own feelings speaks volumes. Most people, they don't even get that far. They're just like, what the hell is this? You know what I mean? Like,
Run away.
Why am I feeling? What is this? You know what I mean? I'm going to go eat something now. It's just like, they don't really think about it. And so when you actually recognize that, even if it's too intense to sit with, that's okay. At least you fucking know that. You know what I mean? And so when you know that, that gives you the choice where you're just like, okay, am I going to numb out with this? Or am I actually going to sit with this? Or am I at a good spot where I can just kind of let this be for a minute and feel into it, stick my toe in, see if I want to go there. And if I don't, I know it'll be there when I come back. You know what I mean? You're not pushing it aside, repressing it, or being like, oh no, that's not really happening. It's still sitting with that shadow, but allowing it to exist and letting it walk around and breathe so that it can come to you. And like you were expressing earlier, what came through for me was like shining the light of your conscious awareness on all aspects of yourself, whether we want to call it shadow or anything else. All it is just discovering more about yourself, right? And even when we're in relationship with another, that's all we're doing too, is discovering more about ourselves. So when we're in school, or if we're the student or the teacher, we're all that on all the levels. You know what I mean? We're literally all that.
And Esther,
all of those shares, it's beautiful.
Savannah's husband took to it too. Jake, I love Jake. Jake sends me leads now. His friends show up, and he's one of the only dudes that gets dudes to talk. You know what I mean? We gotta get more dudes,
which is huge. Oh my
huge,
god,
man.
we need
So
this
when he
dude
sends
on
me a lead,
camera.
it's like gold. It's like solid gold. I'm like, it's a male, it's a man, and
you need that.
I start typing. I'm like, dude, hey, so casual. Let's you want me to read your chart? It's good. And, you know,
Oh yeah, we need that though, because it's just like people talk about, you know, the future is feminine and all that. And I'm a feminist myself, but it's like I'm a feminist for men too. So because it's about the balance, right? Because it's like women had their time, men had their time. The future is feminine in that women are rising again, so that we can meet the male and then, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Be in that space together, which is exactly what human design does, is show you those different aspects and different levels and different energies that are available to us. And rather than labeling them, it's allowing them to dance together. And that's what I look at human design like, is just like, it's a beautiful dance. And it lets you know which dance card you have, like which dance you decided to dance. If you want to do the jig or you want to like rock out, whatever.
Right.
Just lets you do your thing.
It's
And it's
so-
really cool because when you were talking about your own unique chart, the way that I was looking at it was like, you think about that golden thread that ties us all together, right? Throughout life. I always see it that way, where it's just like this golden thread that connects us all. And it's like we're all individual expressions of the same one energy. And what better way to divide and conquer? You know what I'm saying? It's just like, what better way to get to know yourself than to just like allow yourself to explode and come back together? And so you have all these different various expressions and
We've
experiences.
exploded enough, Esther. We have exploded. Humanity has time to come back together.
So many different things, and then come back together and contribute to
Yes.
the whole in a much more beautiful way, because you have all these different experiences and perspectives and awarenesses that I feel like it's all starting to like gel together. And like you were talking about, as far as like awakening, I think we're all awakening to our inner essence, and we're allowing ourselves to be stripped down to that point where we can be our true selves and recognize the not self that you were talking about earlier.
Yep. Yep, exactly. Neck center open in my body graph is that open root down at the bottom. So that's always put me under pressure. So my parents remember that as
Under pressure.
yeah, lots of pressure. And my mom remembers that as I was uncontrollable, absolutely uncontrollable inside of a manifesting generator, boundless energy with confusion going on in the head and ajna center, and a right now set of definition from, the sacral to the throat. And so right now I was always in a hurry to get rid of the pressure. And that pressure was always, I wanted to do the next thing, hurry and do the next thing, hurry and do the next thing. It was amazing. And that was fun as a kid. But as an adult, it was hurry and get a job, hurry and be better, hurry and compete with the other, hurry and don't step on anyone else's toes, but step on their toes anyways, because you need to compete with them because you're in a place that's all seven center trying to be what you're not. It was awful. And then the open
God, you laid that out so well.
Yeah. Well, that's what happens when I start keynoting. Anyone who I've read for knows that they get these streams of consciousness when I start keynoting. Then the open spleen on the far left. I've never felt safe. I was afraid of freaking monsters when I was a kid. I mean, right up through to like 10 years old or more. I was like, I wasn't sure. It might not be safe. If I was out of my parents' purview for too long in a grocery store, you know what I mean? I was like, oh, fuck, I'm going to die, Because if you have a defined spleen, you're not so much worried about your safety per se. You're out there looking into what is safe. You're aware moment to moment of things that may or may not be safe. And if you have it open, you're concerning yourself with, is this even good for me? And it forces you to want to be even more spontaneous because you got to hurry. To spontaneously be safe. And it makes suddenly, if you find something that looks good, it makes you hold on to it. Oh, better hold on to that. It feels safe. Better hold on to that. It feels safe. Oh my God, I better hold on to that if it feels safe. And Savannah, look at the gate I have defined in there, gate 44. So my safety was very often unconsciously showing up out of nowhere, being concerned about extinction of myself, extinction of my family, extinction of the species. It didn't help that my Jewish mother showed me all the Jewish dead bodies in the Jewish black and white films of Nazi Germany killing all the Jews. I was like, oh my God, we're going extinct, That
had to be scary as a young child to feel that way.
She showed it to me at a young age. At this point, I think it was great. But back then, I wasn't sure what to make of bulldozers pushing, thousands of bodies into a mass grave, all skinny and stuff. It was awful, and we're headed for that again a little bit. And that's why we're here doing the show, because we have to fight back against the matrix that's trying to squish us. They got to go. We have to wake people up to this nature.
So that it doesn't happen again. There's parts of history that do not need to repeat itself.
Exactly.
We'll see if humans get it this time.
I sure hope they do.
That's what we're here for, baby.
That's what we're here for.
I've done this many times, honey. I'm waiting for them to catch up.
I would just prefer this to be my last fucking rodeo. Just saying. We'll see.
Last one ends
Well,
in
we can
fire.
arrange that, Esther.
Get it.
We can arrange that. The way to make this be your last rodeo for sure is make sure to disturb the body after you have passed away.
Is it weird? I was just thinking about that yesterday. I'm in the shower. Why is it always shower thoughts, right? But I'm in the shower and I'm like, I'm going to put that in my fucking will that I don't want anybody to move my body for 3 days and then burn it. I was like, and then when you do move it, burn it.
Right. Ashes, whatever, compost it, you bet.
Give it back to Mama Earth.
Yep. I'm down with all of it, but the 72 hours, leave me alone so my consciousness can get back to source. That consciousness that is driving this life force that is born into us at the moment of birth. So,
and I was thinking about that too. It's like thinking about the way that we bring children into the world and the way that we handle the dead afterwards. like it would be so beautiful to be able to leave someone, I don't know necessarily, you know, leave them where they drop kind of thing, but at least don't disturb the body for 3 days. Just let it rest in peace for a few days, allow it to return to source, and then process it however it wants to be processed. But also, even in the birthing, when you come through again, if you decide to, it's like, can you imagine if you were born into like a darker room that has softer lighting? You don't cut the, you know, umbilical cord right away. You're actually put on your mother's chest, so the first thing you hear is her heartbeat.
Right.
And then you're allowed to, basically it's the same gist, where you're allowing that spirit to rest into the body and come into the body and feel the comfort. And so you have that feeling of safety when you arrive, which I wonder if that would even have helped with your open center that you were talking about earlier, your open.
Quite possibly. They separate us from our mother, and the baby
the way that they do it now. It's like you come into these bright lights, you're scared as shit, you get smacked in the ass, your shit is cut, and it's just like, think about how.
And if you got a dick, that thing's chopped off too.
Yeah, but that also makes you more easily controllable because you feel like you're alone when you're not. You're never alone.
God, I can just imagine. Yeah. Like that video I sent you guys. I forget if I sent it to you too, Savannah. That black man having talking to his baby, freshly born, like, moments out of the birthing canal, and how the baby responded to the father's voice. It was striking. Yeah, I thought I sent it to all you guys, but I might not have put it on the group thread.
Yeah, I watched it this morning, and because I've heard the babies can hear the dad's voice, and so it's familiar. While they're in the womb, the baby can hear the mother's voice and the father's voice if he was around, and so that would make sense why it was so calming to the baby once the baby was out. So, I was going to say something about that. Yes, I actually had a birth. I actually had like a home birth. Well, it was at like a birth center, but like in a tub. And just how you said, it's like such more of like a spiritual experience when you're allowed to connect more, like after you have the baby and like putting the baby on your chest and not cutting the cord. And so no, everything you said, I've experienced like a hospital birth versus a unmedicated birth. And it really changes things, I feel, for the mother and the baby. It just feels more like spiritual. Sorry, I feel like I'm like going off on this tangent on birth.
No, I was going to ask you if you would mind sharing a little bit more, if you're comfortable, about that, like the difference between the hospital birth versus the home center birth that you're talking about, as far as like even when it relates to the human design conversation that we're having right now, like, because Dan always talks about like we have our own, what's it called, Dan? It's like we have our own crystals or
our crystals of consciousness. They're imbued upon us while we're at conception. 6 months into conception, they're now one's formatted, and then at the time of birth, the other. Yeah, these crystals.
So it's like I almost wonder if those crystals
show on that one.
You know what I mean? Like those crystals have I don't want to say better chance to form in that second type, but I want to do some research on that. I'd love to do like an experiment or research on that kind of thing. Because do you notice a difference with your children as far as like one that's hospital birth versus the one that was like home birth? Like, did you notice any difference, or what was your personal experience with that, Savannah? If you don't mind sharing more. If you're comfortable.
What I think is interesting is my baby that I had at a birth, like in a tub, natural. He actually has the spleen open, the heart, and the G center. So those are the ones that I only have filled in. So it's almost like we completely fill all the centers together with my young with Bodhi. And so and I noticed, like, since he has that open spleen, it was probably really good for Bodhi, like, to just stay with me the whole time right after he came out, you know, like he was just right on my chest, and he was so chill. Like, he cried a little bit, but then he was just so calm the rest of the time. And so compared to my other kids, so yeah, it's just really interesting.
That is beautiful. You're all woman over
We'll have to do a show all about that and check and see. I know some women that have are midwives. Huh?
Let's go full screen.
I know
Jen,
some
that would be
women.
great. That would be great to do a show like that, like doing a whole birth plan and the whole thing about conception and like what you're talking about right now. That would be beautiful. Because imagine the consciousness we would have on this planet if we did that shit.
Yeah, if we could
Oh,
actually get
absolutely.
stuff, that would make suddenly make everything different, and then we would stop trying to squish our uniqueness. It's inside of these individual channels, these individual gates, that all this uniqueness shows up, and it's always, it's too unique for the other. It's so unique that nobody really wants it. When I say nobody wants it, the collective doesn't want it because it doesn't want to follow rules. Uniqueness doesn't like to follow rules. Uniqueness doesn't like to be told what to do. Uniqueness doesn't want to be influenced by the other necessarily, but it's within a holistic body that must commune with the other. So ultimately it shares, it loves, it does all the things. It's just where we find our uniqueness is where we can count on ourselves to be different. I mean, truly, where we can count on ourselves to be that thing that, how do I put it? That thing that
beauty in the chaos.
Say it again.
It's the beauty in the chaos.
The beauty
it's a
in the
natural
chaos.
order to the chaos.
Yeah, that's what I would call that uniqueness, because that uniqueness is not the chaos. That is the beauty. The chaos is everything else trying to squish the uniqueness. Uniqueness is the new human way. We are 9-centered beings. We are here to commune, and that requires us to maintain our own uniqueness within the communion. That wasn't true for the older 7-centered beings. That, you know, everything a few centuries ago and back, when we were what the 7-centered chakra system was, cooperative beings that needed only to cooperate. But the uniqueness in us now must commune, or we'll die off. Which makes me wonder why the Matrix was so quick to keep us all 6 feet apart, so that we couldn't commune. Because 6 feet was really turned into more like 8 feet, and then suddenly we're all out of each other's aura for sure. Except those of us with a double wide aura, which isn't, you know, it's a minority. So
When do you feel like, what's your understanding of when the 9 chakra, the 9-centered beings came into
the
play?
same understanding that lets me know we keep sending a message out into the matrix, because the stuff we talk about on this show keeps showing out into the world, like within weeks, a month or so shows up. It was when an astronomer named Herschel discovered and was able to document the planet Uranus. When he documented Uranus, suddenly the world knew, and that shock wave went through the world, and suddenly the body got shook loose. It's sort of like you pull out, you know, a root, you pull out a weed, and you shake off all the good dirt. It's like it just shook everything loose, and it was pulling out an old thing and letting what was there vibrate out into suddenly splitting the body graph out into these 9 centers. That happened because one human saw it, just like when I discovered relativity. Yeah, it's quite a thing.
What I was gonna
go ahead, Savannah.
Oh, sorry. What I was gonna add to that is like the Matrix. It wants to make us feel and think that we are all separate and that we're not connected, but really we are all interconnected. And when one person wakes up, it affects the whole. And so, so that makes sense. Like what you're saying, Dan. Like when they found that planet and they became conscious and aware of it, it like changed all of us and affected the body graph. Like, is that right? It switched.
Totally. It took what was a straight line of a 7-centered chakra system, which has always appeared in a straight line, a pole, and it mushroomed it out into something I would call more feminine. You know what I mean? It added flesh. It impregnated us with new life.
Creativity, creation, chaos.
Creation, absolutely. And it's we should notice it through other aspects, though. We don't have to take our word at it for that. It was at the time of our discovery of the planet Uranus that suddenly human lifespans started to triple. I mean, it's not because we have sanitation, for God's sakes, that helps, but that doesn't actually make the lifespan of a being go from 30 years average to 84. We turned into a Uranian life cycle. 84 years from a Saturnian life cycle. Saturn was around 30 years. So
way before that, people were living way longer than that. So where was the change?
Not many. Not en masse, Jen, not en masse. We had started to get to the 40s easily enough.
No. I'm talking about people living way past 100. And then time shortened for man. So where does that fit in?
I have no idea.
I wonder if
my
something else
knowledge
happened with the planet to cause that shift. You know what I mean? To shorten the
Yes,
lifespan
that's
for
what
a while.
I'm wondering. And I'm also wondering too, so the discovery of the planet Uranus triggered that in one man to change. So he went, so
That in humanity.
in
Because of his
humanity
contribution
was,
into
but did he
consciousness.
mutate?
Well, no, because it happened in all the children being born thereafter. Within days of that discovery, new human babies were coming out different.
Is
But
it
their
just the
parents weren't
Consciousness
planet?
had changed. The consciousness that they were born into it changed.
Is it just the planet that did that, or could it be triggered by an event or something else?
No, it's going to be triggered by an event in 2027. That's for sure.
Okay,
but when we
that's what I'm
mutate
asking.
again, yeah, when we mutate again, it'll be triggered by the event of the passage of the equinox. The stellar background is shifting, and it's about at that shift. That's why we're noticing so much chaos on this planet.
Well, Pluto is transitioning out of Capricorn and will be going into Aquarius. So it's triggering a lot of things, and that does happen in the time of 2027. So that's why I'm asking, like, does it have to do with just planetary things? Because there are a lot of stuff that's happening on this planet right now to trigger people to awakening.
No, it was a lot of things, Jen.
Okay.
To flesh out the answer to that question, thanks for asking it further. To flesh it out further, it wasn't just the fact that the planet was there. It was the observation of the planet and the fact that what Savannah is saying is true. We're all interconnected. When one saw it, everyone saw it, even though they didn't.
The consciousness changed.
Yes, consciousness changed.
Right.
And the other thing that collided with it was the human evolution of the actual body itself. It was evolving. Our intelligence was evolving. We've all been looking for a spiritual thing to help awaken us to certain stuff, but we still have to, we're in a scientific thinking, fact-based Maya as well. We've got to get through the mental plane as much as we have to get through the spiritual plane. They both have to be transcended. So we were on this huge scientific push where we were knowing more and more and more. We were, I mean, hell, we were practically taking flight by then almost. We were doing all kinds of things that were allowing us to be that awareness. Our mind was developing so fast and so rapidly that when we discovered Uranus, that planet, it was suddenly like, okay, give the humans an 84-year life cycle. They're going to need it because now we're going to dump a bunch more stuff on them, and they're not even going to be grown-ups until they're about 35 or 40. So, and they're not really fully mature until they're between 40 and 50 is when that maturity really starts to reign. Notice, tell me what of our I'm the only one here with 18-year-old children, I'm guessing, but which one of us, who knows an 18-year-old that's smart, truly wise?
My 17 is, well, he's not.
My son's pretty wise.
He's
Come out on the street and tell him to be real good, and we'll find that he struggles. Yet the Saturnian life cycle being was designed to be out on the street at 14. They were making babies by 15, working fields because they had a more mundane life. They didn't have the same mental Maya, the same mental plane to transcend.
I gotta look at that. I'm sorry, like the lifespan of humans, you've got me thinking about it now.
Now, I can't speak to folklore and things that I'm not aware of and don't know. I'm just talking about as we've been made aware of the Homo sapien that came out of Cro-Magnon. The Cro-Magnon, a five-centered being, shifted about 110,000 years ago, between that and 90,000 years ago, into the seven-centered Cro-Magnon. What it was.
Any viewer that's watching this, if you have done extensive research, because I know scientifically, like the bodies that they are bringing up, that they are finding, they have lived hundreds of years. So I'm wondering, where was the transition, and what centered beings were those beings?
I wouldn't know. But humanity en masse, if you take all of the human beings that were alive over the past 90,000 years, if a few transcended somehow and lived a wicked long time, I don't know what the dealio was with them, but the vast majority of the millions of human beings were dying at 20 and 30 years old. The ancient cavemen were lucky to make it to 25 years before they got eaten, before they were no longer, weren't the strongest thing on the block because other things had actually come up under them. So You
Got
know,
me thinking, Dan.
Yep. For the longest time, we barely made it out of our teens, if you think about it, for tens and for eons and eons. And it wasn't until the past 4 or 5 millennia that we started really making it into 30 and 40 years old, and that stayed put for a long time. Then we saw the planet Uranus, and suddenly inside of a couple hundred years, we're all living into our 80s. I mean, that's just a couple hundred years, guys. And we slowly evolved over those couple hundred years, well, rapidly evolved to start to truly just double our lifespan, fully double and plus some.
What I was going to say, so when they did find the planet Uranus, when was it? 17 something? I can't remember.
1781. I looked it up. March 13th, 1781.
There you go. Okay. Sorry, I couldn't remember.
Cool. Thanks, Esther.
That's isn't that when projectors came on the scene? Because projectors,
when they started to ascend.
because energetically, the body graph changed in the inside. And so it changed, it produced projectors.
It started producing projectors.
Yeah. So I don't know
the way consciousness into the field. And
then that new aura of the projector started penetrating everyone, asking, who are you? Well, who are you? And that started providing us guides, because the person being penetrated had to answer, oh, I am. And in that answer, they started to guide themselves. Well, I am the steam engine controller. Okay, so that mind started to expand, controlling the steam engine. You know what I mean? And then that little bugger got all creative doing their thing. The projector kept guiding people, and they didn't even know it. And many projectors recognized their guidance capacities and did do it on purpose, I would assume, but I won't know. We could go back into literature and find accounts of it. But around 1781, we'll start to see a shift in literature. And in that 100-year period, that 50-year period between 1776 and 1830, let's say 36, that 60-year period, we will see this amazing shift in literature. We'll see it all is going to change. Just within that 30 years, it'll start to have changed. Love will start to get talked about more. Emotions, want, desire, all the things that become the passions that we have, the literature around it will completely change. And that will be the only anthropological clue we could really find, because we didn't keep records on this stuff.
It sounds like the infusion of divine feminine.
It would be wicked cool. I don't read that much, so someone else gonna have to do that.
It also made me think, because I know like we individually have a carnation cross, but also the planet as a whole, they go through cycles too. Like right now we're in the cross of planning. Yeah. And then you can look back, like when the Renaissance started, the theme of that was, I can't remember what cross it was. I don't know if you know, Dan.
No, not off the top of my head. It was one right before plannings. I'd have to look it up.
So I think that can also help explain like human evolution and like the themes that are playing out as a whole, as a planet, to help explain it. Yeah.
In February of 2027, we move into the cross of the sleeping phoenix. And that's where the big change happens, this overarching cosmic motion that actually changes. And that's where it's at that point that I feel like science will finally start to realize, hey, the neutrino stream that's pouring through us, maybe it is doing something to us. Maybe I don't have to look at astrology like it's just woo-woo and, you know, the stars in the background are doing something to you. Yeah, right, Dan, sure. Tell me another one. You know, that's what I used to say. I thought the stars were twinkly things that were pretty, and that was about it. You know, I didn't give it much more thought as a younger man. And now I start to recognize, oh yeah, it's doing something. When planning leaves, we're in the cross of the sleeping phoenix. Every gate in that cross, except for one, is individual. That phoenix wants to fly. And that's why I'm trying to get this uniqueness out, because...
Thank you. You just answered the question that I sent you in my head. Telepathic. That's our next form of communication. Because you were talking about earlier, you speak it, it puts it into the Maya. I feel like we're going to move into telepathic communication very soon. We're already doing it now. Yes. It's just people don't want to admit that shit because it scares them. But it's just like, you're already doing it all the time. And I literally just asked you that question about a minute and a half ago. And you literally just answered it.
Well, because that's...
So thank you for that confirmation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, go ahead, Joanna.
Oh, something I was going to say is like, you know, the cross of planning, the archetype of that, it's all about like community and having an outer authority and like a government system to make it so everyone, there's like cohesiveness, right? You know, like churches and having like a person that people go to for an outer authority. But like you can already start to see how that's breaking down. Like people have lost trust in the medical system, like, right, with COVID.
Yeah.
You know, they've got it wrong on so many things.
On everything.
And it's broken people's trust in that medical authority figure. And you can also see it now with the government. People are not trusting that the government. You can see it with church. So many people are leaving their religions that they were a part of, they were born into. People aren't trusting their spiritual priests and prophets, you know, in those religions, and people are leaving that in droves. And so you can see how people are naturally, we're just starting to turn within and become like our own inner authority, you know. And so it's just, I see it so evidently. And like they talk about this in yogic philosophy too, about how we're leaving the Piscean age where we want that outer authority telling us what to do. And we're moving into the Aquarian age, which is an inner authority. Like we are our own guru. We have our own answers within. And that's what the Cross of the Sleeping Phoenix is all about, right?
Yeah.
Turning within your own inner experience and not looking to someone outside of you to give you those answers for yourself. And so
the Aquarian is all about your uniqueness, like you said.
Yeah. And then we share that answer with the other. That's what we're here to do, is to keep sharing it. Keep sharing it. Yep. And we share it through our uniqueness. Our uniqueness is what's going to do the sharing. So do we feel like looking at someone else's body graph for a second and pluck out some unique things? Does anyone want to go? We'll take a volunteer, or I got your guys' body graphs. I just took pictures and whited out the dates of birth information because it's still.
Okay, well, Dan, I actually had a question for you because we were actually talking about this last night. Sorry, my son was talking. I had to hurry and mute it. Okay, so I noticed there's like, once you do find your human design, sometimes you can find things in your chart that you don't like. I know we're supposed to love ourselves, right? But there can be some things in our charts where they can be kind of frustrating.
Yeah. Do you want to look at one of your gates and?
Oh, well, just something I recently learned was in my moon, I have gate 64.2.
Can we pull your chart up, Savannah?
Yeah.
Go. Can you?
And that's so like the moon is like your own inner world and how like your thoughts and how it works. And that 64.2. If you look it up, the line, it talks about how we're constantly like overburdening the psyche with all of our worries and our concerns. I'm like, right, that's totally me. Like I totally get into my head and I like stress myself out.
But in the recognition of that, now it's conscious to you. So you can see it in there. That's 64. It's up at the top of the body graph. It's in an open center. So it's intermittent. It shows up and then sometimes it's not there. And it's a second line, so it's always projecting out that there's that issue going on with it. And so that 64 stands alone as a little island of confusion, but now you overburden yourself with it. So now if you just allow it to be, suddenly it's not, the word overburden doesn't play anymore. When the book got written and we started writing out the human design body graph, we had to write it for a not self world. As we awaken to our nature, all of these definitions, they're going to be the same. They're just going to change the slant. The verbiage is going to change, and it's no longer going to read like stuff we wouldn't want to hear, per se. But we have to speak to our not-self beings first, because that's what we know the most. That's what we're most familiar with. It's sort of what we are not. And it's the uniqueness in us that actually drives to find that. It's the uniqueness that wants to sing. And it's the uniqueness that everyone wants to take away and homogenize out of the child, out of the adult, out of the adolescent, all of it. So gate 64, line 2, you're driven to have confusion come in so that you can process it. Now you can know it's not really yours. You're a divining rod for the confusion on the planet. You're divine. It's not even yours. I mean, you experience it. But it's you experiencing it. It's not you having to live it out. Just like we've been learning the same thing with me. If you go back to my body graph, if we're able to look at, if you look at my body graph, I have definition in that head center. But look, that 64 is unconscious. and it shows up twice, 64.6. And it shows up twice, so I'm burdened by unconscious confusion. It comes out of nowhere. And so I used to think that that was a problem. I still think it's a problem, but I've gotten used to it. You know, it's been a thing that I start to recognize, oh shit, it's just, as soon as the unconscious confusion comes, I recognize I'm about to get smarter. As soon as your confusion comes, yes, it's on the second line, so it's out of the natural confusion. It just shows up. I don't know if you have your book handy, but can you read it? I forgot what 64.2 is. And now I just recognize I'm about to get smarter. And that's what our uniqueness does for us.
Yeah. Oh, I have the book in front of me. It says, which part do you want me to read? It says
64 gate line 2.
It has, so I have the arrow pointing down in my moon, and it says constantly in action. It wastes the very qualities and resources that it will need, getting lost in the confusion and burdening the psyche.
Getting lost. And what's the name of the line? And is there a heading below it?
Oh, qualification. Line 2 is qualification.
And is there a heading, or is there no italic heading above that? Right there.
Oh, above it, it says the inner development, which recognizes what qualities are essential for transcendence, and the awareness that without them, action will fail. Inner development that can end the confusion over what makes sense.
Well, that is a life process. The fact that it's fixed to one arrow, which yours is, doesn't mean that you live that out only. It means that you live out that life process of recognizing, what was it called? Qualification?
Mm-hmm.
Like qualifying. That's a second line theme. Totally. I'm not doing anything till I can qualify that. I don't have to do anything till I can qualify that. You're learning to qualify the confusion. And you're starting to see in your holistic being when it takes you away from your nature. So actually, it being fixed to the down arrow makes you even more of a pro, in a way, of qualifying what confusion is worth having. And now when we rewrite the book in 20 years or so, as enough people have gotten this knowledge, we won't write it the same way. We'll write it more like what I just said.
Mm-hmm.
And because, we had to write it in such a way that you would recognize it is the thing. So you recognize that.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
Right. As children come into this world being explained about their own nature, suddenly they will recognize it all differently, and we'll be able to reword this, some of this stuff. We'll be able to write our own I Ching. Everyone can write their own. So, and they do it through their uniqueness inside their body graph. I see a gate 8 on your body graph. Oh, I see a channel of perfected form, 5710 in your body graph, Savannah. This is incredibly unique, and a 28. So the struggle you'll go through to have your behavior be something that you're okay with as you study your way into the future is something that you're always perfecting. You're always perfecting your behavior as you go through your way through life. And if you don't like it, you tear it down. You become an anarchist. And this is your unique way. So people can't bitch about that. Savannah's always looking at my behavior. Yeah, sometimes Savannah's looking at your behavior. So, freaking deal with it. So that's just a thing to get to know about somebody. And again, this is a thing we get to show as it relates to a body graph. So that's
Dan, I've heard some people say the perfected form can manifest as like perfectionism. Is that really true? Because I don't feel like I'm a perfectionist.
No.
But I've heard other people say that is that true?
Some people might see it a little bit that way. The perfected form is about your own perfected way. In the moment, in the now, you have the immediate ego survival techniques of knowing exactly how to behave in any given moment. That's what the perfected form is. It's an intuitive way to know exactly how to behave. If you bring a boombox into the jungle, something might eat you. That's not the right behavior for walking around a dense jungle. The right behavior might be to camouflage yourself. That would be correct behavior. And you're going to know that right away. You have an instinctual awareness of what the behavior is that helps you and your children survive moment to moment to moment. That's what that is. It might perfect things. Yeah, some people might see that a little bit as a perfectionist, but wherever there's individuality, you will find a perfectionist because it's so unique. It's too unique to go without. So
But then, like, since the 57 is red in that whole channel, does that make it so I'm not always consciously aware that I'm
You're
doing
not always
that?
consciously aware until it shows up out of a tunnel. That's what the red does. So the marriage of our red lines to our black lines is really where we're getting hung up. That's what the new 9-centered being was given over the old 7-centered being. We didn't have a binary consciousness. This duality that says, hey, the body gives us the chemistry, like the clip at the beginning of this show. The body gives us a chemistry, and the chemistry, that feeling, that chemistry, which is a feeling, informs us as to what's true. And then we let mind get involved thereafter to start helping to measure what decisions will get made as it relates to all of that. So it's the marriage of the red and the black. That's the infinite love affair. That's what you were talking about, Esther. That's what you keep noticing, Jen. When you keep noticing that it's something inside of us, we get to know we have to love about ourselves. And you keep seeing it over and over again. The red lines are our body's consciousness. The black lines are our personality's consciousness. These two things, we're a duality. We're two merged into one. And that's why it seems so difficult to be us. We haven't quite gotten used to that yet. I guess that's...
No. Well, it's other people, it's we're all doing it. We're all learning to get there. And I asked you this question at one point in time. When does the awakened individual hold space for the other awakened individual? We are all on some point in our journeys of waking up to who we truly are and merging these aspects. It's a big container to hold space.
It is.
For another person.
I say we start holding space. I don't know the answer to that question, Jen. I'd like to think it's right away.
No one's ready.
Yeah, well.
I don't think people are ready just yet.
Well, some people are ready. Enough people are ready because here we are. So fuck that. We're all going to be ready soon enough.
Well, we're still getting there, but each individual, all of us that are speaking right now are not fully awakened to. We have not fully gone through the deconditioning program, and we're still learning to hold space for each other.
Yeah,
we're still learning.
We are still learning, but in that learning,
that's just the human experience. I feel like the human experience is spiritual enlightenment. I mean, you want to call spiritual enlightenment whatever the hell anybody wants to coin that term, whatever it is. The human experience is what we're here for. You know what I mean? We literally chose to be here in order to experience that and return it to the collective. I mean, that is our contribution to the whole. That's how we're connected to all of life, is we're literally experiencing all of life through any one given vessel. So we're basically the multiverse on one planet. You know what I mean? Because you're a bunch of different universes that are contributing to a whole. And I don't know, I feel like it's a different thing. So you're all technically holding space for each other as it is. By the space that you hold for yourself, you're already holding space for another. There is no place you need to get to do it. You're already there. You're already doing it. Just by being you and your unique expression of that beautiful, divine, fucking life force energy that is pulsating through you in any given moment. That's you. That's life. That's juice. That's love. That's everything. That's God. To me.
That's true. It's like fire burning out onto the plane. It truly is. And that fire is one that's driven by the love of all things. It's driven by love. Love drives the fire. Mm-hmm. It's a chemistry inside of us that we were endowed with long ago. And that
I feel like we're told there's a place to get to, but there's not. You're already here.
We're
already there. Put one foot in front of the other and keep fucking going. That's all you got to do.
What Jennifer is referring to, I'm pretty sure, is what we're all sort of scared of, is the masses that haven't woke up yet. They're all going to turn to fucking killer monkeys as soon as they're hungry for a couple days. You know, that's
pitchforks.
Well, I mean, yeah, well, there's a thin veneer of this humanity. If you think about our civility and our civilization is but a veneer. If you're just amongst only sleepwalkers, it's a veneer that will crumble, and that's the concern, that it'll crumble and suddenly, you know, the killer monkey side of humanity will come back out quickly, and we're on a race against time to try and sort of, you know, get to enough people to where, just like there's enough people that are immune from the stupid virus and didn't get vaccinated, so that we can, you know, still propel on and not be fucked up inside of our body because we got too much stuff in us. that's what we're trying to get to inside of this. It's very
So basically, we're just getting out of our own way.
getting out of our own way, literally. Yeah, it's true.
That's always that's one of my biggest questions too. Though, is like, just because we don't understand something, why are we so quick to kill it? You know what I mean? Like, just because you don't understand something doesn't make it any less valid than your own point of view. But it's like you said, take some time.
We're all getting really close to it, because I notice nobody seems to want to go and kill the other tribe, except the wicked hierarchy on top of the collective. They seem to keep telling us that we think we want to go do that, but we don't. I don't know anybody that does. I just don't know people that do. You know, not on any large scale. I don't know anybody.
Did you see that movie They Live?
Say that again?
Yes.
The movie They Live, where he wears the sunglasses and you can see all the shit, like buy, consume, obey, blah, 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 blah.
I didn't see it.
It's a really good
movie.
movie.
You need to see that. It's really good. But it basically lays out exactly what you were talking about. And personally, I feel like they're going down, but hey, whatever.
I do too. I do too, Esther. They're going down.
Savannah, you had something you were going to say?
Oh, I know they say it takes, 7 years to decondition, like from when you're first exposed to the information of your chart. It takes 7 years to kind of like process that information and start to notice and experiment with your design. And so I was talking to Dan about this last night, how sometimes it can be kind of discouraging as you're going through your deconditioning process. Like all my conditioning that's taken place in all my open centers, and sometimes it's like, I know this information of like the not self theme of an open throat, is talking too much, which was a huge thing that I struggled with. Or in my open sacral, not knowing when enough is enough. And so it's like, sometimes I know this information, but then sometimes I get so caught up in life, and those not self themes start to like, I'm doing them again, and so, so sometimes it can be, discouraging. And, so anyways, yeah.
It's about not beating yourself up for it. That's really where we're at. It's about not beating ourselves up for it, because I still do it to this day. We all will. It's not our fault. We were born into this. It's about getting to the kids. It's about getting to the next generation and making sure we steward them in, and hopefully there's something here for them to steward into, other than some oligarchical fucking stupid patch full of bullshit and mayhem,
Yeah. Well, I just want to say, Dan, I have been using this with my kids, and I can't tell you how much it has helped me parent my kids. And things that probably would have blown up and been horrible, they are actually these like really amazing, tender experiences that I've had with them. So I totally, it's helped me in my relationships with my kids. And because my son Thatcher has kind of a difficult chart. Like, I know it's bad, I shouldn't say difficult, but he's got 3 gates in 51, loves to shock people. He's this super competitive. Sometimes he can be a little bit foolish with some of his choices that he makes, and then he has 2 in gate 21 where he's just super, don't tell me what to do. It's kind of stubborn, to his energy. And so me having that information just helps me to know how to like navigate him so that I can have, the best result, and he can have the best result too. So yeah,
that's important.
Moving on from here, I'm starting to think, as we wrap this show up, and we're glad everyone was able to talk about this, we really have to start getting into talking about how this is applying to the children, and how to do the simple aspects of reading a body graph. And while I don't have a title for next week's show yet, I think one should be coming out sooner rather than later this time. And hopefully people are willing to help out with that. What do people want to hear? What do you think we should really get into next?
I think you just said it at the very end. It's about the kids. I mean, we all are talking about deconditioning our process right now and holding space. Well, we also, getting to them and getting to the parents for one, and showing that they can help their kids. And Savannah, that was great what you said, that they don't have to go through the hard deconditioning process that we do. When we show them that, and help parents realize that you're really getting a manual to your child. Every mom out there, I mean, I bought that damn book about, you know, when you're becoming a mom. I can't even remember the name of it now. What to expect when you're expecting or something like that. It's the Human Design Manual. So I think maybe talking more about the kids.
Yeah, we really need to.
I know it's helping mine.
Yeah, and Esther's got it lucky because she's got one, and Eric, and he's a 2-4 as a profile. So half of Esther's job is to leave Eric alone. Is that still true, Esther? It's working out that way?
Yeah.
Yep.
He just naturally rocks. It's who he is.
Yep. Yeah. Well, I
I
mean,
get to step back, watch, witness with joy, and just like,
yeah, and now you know. I bet there were times, Esther, where you wondered, "Oh, I'm not paying enough attention," or "I need."
Oh yeah, I actually felt guilty about that.
Yes,
I had a lot of guilt.
And
But
you
he's
know,
like, "No, Mom, I'm good."
Yeah.
I was like, "Okay."
Right, and you wonder if that's true, and all the stuff, and
I straight up asked him before. I was like, "Do you feel like I give you enough attention? Do you feel like you know what I mean?" So I want to let him know that you have all the space you need, but I'm not gone. You're not alone. You know what I'm saying? Right. That balance. I don't want to ignore you.
Right, left alone, not lonely. That's half the job most of the time for most parents. That'll be the thing. Most of the time, that's going to be one of the primary rules. Left alone, not lonely. Two totally different things.
Like I just love that conversation though, because he was like, "No, Mom, I'm good." I was like, "Okay, cool."
Right, and it didn't take long, did it? As I recall, he's got that centering circuit, so he's like, "No, it's over."
He's like,
"Yep." Okay. And as I recall, he's not emotional either, right? So yeah, so he's zippity fast. He's zippity fast. That's right. Yeah.
And I love the balance, and it was just like the way when you were reading his chart. It was literally like it was downloading through me into him, because it was so interesting to witness him after you did his chart reading with me for him. It literally like translated through my consciousness into his. I could watch it happen. It was so fucking cool. Dude, and then to be able to just like literally have that manual, like we were talking about it earlier. That was the same, Jen, that was the same conversation I was having with Dan the other day. I was like, can you imagine? That's literally like having a manual when you're born. We all say we don't have a manual, but we do. It's your fucking chart. You know what I mean? And so when Dan read my son's chart, it was literally like, he was like, here's the manual. I was like, oh my God.
It's hard to believe at first, isn't it, too, in the very beginning?
It was just like, it made things so much, like, lack of a better term, easier, because then I could get out of my own goddamn way. You know what I mean? Because then I could just take the focus off of what I thought I should be doing and just allow him to be who he is and just hold that space like we were talking about earlier, right? And the best way that I can hold that space is just by being who I am, because I'm the one he came in to have be his mother in the first place, not my mother.
Right.
And so while I'm working on my deconditioning, that's automatically going to translate to him to where he has an open space to work from, you know? And I remember having those conversations with him. It was very, very shortly after Dan had read his chart for me. We started having those deconditioning conversations, and our relationship completely fucking shifted. I shit you not. It really did. And Jesus Christ, I love that boy so much. But anyways.
Right.
So, yeah.
So now you watch him respond in the moment. Is that right? You witness his responses in the moment, and you recognize that as his truth. So yeah, no parent.
And it helped him relax. You know what I mean? It like helped his energy just like settle in and relax. After you shared that with me and I started putting that into practice, it created this space in his mind of, oh, she trusts me.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was so interesting.
And as he gets older, he won't allow other people to tell him what to do. That's what we want. You know,
he's already there.
That's how it's supposed to be. You go, Eric. I can't wait to meet him one day.
Me too.
So, yeah, let's get more moms on here. We need moms and dads. We need parents. We got to turn this into parents. This is now the parent show. I think we're ready to do that. And save our Wednesday nights for the foul mouth, where we talk about, where I swear a lot more, and I talk about these.
Sorry, you want to make it family
evil
friendly.
villain
I gotta
things.
make it over 18 as soon as the cussing starts, and I know because I'm really bad at it too. So.
Well, no, but I mean, Wednesday nights is reserved for arch villain. Wednesday nights is what we're doing.
Yes, guys.
Oh,
I guess we will. Are we wrapping up?
Yes, let's wrap up and arch villain
Well,
Wednesday.
can we add that birthing and stuff to that list too with the parents when we were talking about like coming into conception and the crystals?
Yes, well,
and the
that's
birthing and all
that's
that?
definitely got to be a topic of a show.
That sounds good to me.
I
like it, and I'd like to investigate that through querying and asking moms what the scoop was with all of that, because I don't know. Mothers will know. I can read. I can't know. I need others to tell me, you know, as we read together and commune, really, essentially. That's what it's about. So can I announce who Arch Villain Wednesday is?
Yes, Dan, go right ahead.
Jen Psaki.
We're going to be doing Jen Psaki this coming Wednesday at our new time. That is 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time.
No, that would be
5 p.m.
Yep.
So make sure you tune in. We'll post a link on that. If you haven't already, please again, make sure you like, subscribe to the show, hit that notification button so you don't miss out. Sign up for our newsletter list because as Dan said, you know, we are expecting a big, massive change undergoing here in the next probably by the end of the year towards in the next year. If social media or anything goes down, the best way that we can get a hold of you is if you are subscribed to our newsletter list. So make sure that you sign up down below. If you haven't had a session already with Dan, please reach out because he is phenomenal. He'll help you. He'll help you understand your family, your kids, and all sorts of things. The whole 100%. Point of the show is waking us up to our true nature so that we can all go through the deconditioning process and that so that we can all start holding space for each other in a safe container and stop acting out of our not self themes.
Thank you, Jennifer. That was so well said.
You're welcome, Dan. Ladies, thank you for joining us today. Savannah, I love it when you join too. Thank you. You asked such a wonderful question. Ladies, thank you for joining us. I got enough. With that said, everybody, thank you for joining in, and we will see you next time.
All right, later on, Esther. Bye, Savannah.
Bye. Thank you for having me on.
Bye.